Good afternoon, everyone. If you'll give us just another moment, we're going to wait and let a few more people join us. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for Cloud versus On-Premise, how to decide what's right for your business. Symmetrix Technologies is a full-service IT managed service provider. They are Microsoft Silver Partner, serving the greater Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex for over 18 years. They specialize in providing services to law firms and financial services industry. Symmetrix Technologies helps small and medium businesses integrate their existing networks with cloud technologies to achieve significant labor and infrastructure cost savings. Today's presenter is David Gullett, CISSP and CEO of Symmetrix Technologies. David, are you ready?
Yep, let's go.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Lacey, and thank you, everybody, for joining today and taking time out of your busy schedule. And so we're going to go pretty quick because there's a lot of information here. And so let's go over the agenda, first of all. We're going to go over the current IT landscape, support options to consider for your company, cost management and containment, optimizing your current infrastructure, improving your employee productivity, and then they go down a checklist for choosing the right IT partner for your business. All right, so starting off, let's go back in time a little bit. And starting in the mid-'90s, all of us were really using local area networks. And to get to corporate data, what you had to do was to either go home to your PC or use a really heavy, bulky laptop at the time to VPN in, or actually in the mid-'90s, it was really more like PC Anywhere and modems, those fun times. But what had happened roughly in the mid-2000s was the advent of Google's G Suite and Microsoft Office 365, or really rather the precursors to that. And what happened was companies started moving their corporate data to the cloud. Now this is great because what happens is that you can actually get to it remotely on multiple kinds of devices, laptops, tablets, smartphones, although smartphones came a little bit later. And so it got rid of the VPN stuff, so you could work from any time, any place, anywhere. Really nice. And there was also added benefits from this cloud stuff, which is the automated managed stuff, services. And what that means is it takes a lot of load off your IT staff, meaning that these cloud service providers, what they do is they're really good at optimizing their environment, and they do a lot of things like network monitoring, installing security patches, the latest software updates, and keeping everything up to date. It takes a lot of load off your IT staff. And the other great thing about moving to the cloud is that you get more for less, because traditionally what you'd have to do is every 3 to 5 years is rip all the infrastructure out of your data center or your office, and have to buy brand new servers and workstations and everything. And what you're doing there is a capital expense, or capex. And what that means is you're buying this a huge investment every 3 to 5 years, and it's very expensive. And what you're doing there is buying peak. I mean, you're buying what you think the maximum you're going to use it for the next 3 to 5 years. Well, the difference with the cloud is it's an operational expense, or OPEX. And so you're buying. It's more of a consumption model. You're buying exactly what you use. And the neat thing about that is you can move it up and down. So let's say that like you're a retailer, and so Black Friday comes around, and suddenly you need a lot more resources. Well, what you can do is just increase it temporarily, and then come January you can reduce it back down. So it's a consumption model. It's very predictable in what you're going to spend. It's very adaptable. Let's move on here. Okay, and there's a couple different support models that you can look at. What we're all used to is break fix, and that's the traditional model. I mean, it's been like that since the 90s. And what that is, let's say you're sitting in your office on a Wednesday afternoon, and a workstation breaks. Well, okay, so then you call your IT company, and they dispatch a tech, and then so he's got to drive down there. Hopefully he can fix it right then, but maybe not. Maybe he's got to go get a part. So then he's got to leave and then come back, and so you're talking hours and hours for to get that fixed. And it's a very reactive model. And also in terms of budget, it's unpredictable. You don't really know what you're going to spend every month. I mean, so it's wildly unpredictable. Now, about 10 years ago, this new model came out called Managed Service Provider, or MSP, which I'm going to refer to that from now on. With the MSP, what happens is you have a fixed cost per machine per month. This is what we do for our clients. So it's a flat rate support package based on per machine, like per server and per workstation. And we include other things in the bundle, like antivirus and backup and 24/7 monitoring. And the great thing about the MSP model is that it's proactive because we're monitoring, so we know when something goes down, so you don't get that weird Monday morning surprise of, oh no, the server's down. Well, we're going to know about it ahead of time. And then in terms of budgetary costs, you know exactly what you're going to pay every month. So it's not that wild up and down that you get with the break fix model. And then there's a tertiary model called the CSP, which is really kind of an offshoot of the MSP. It's Cloud Service Provider. And what that is it has a lot of the same characteristics of the MSP, but it revolves around Office 365 typically, and there's some add-ons in those bundles as well. An extra level of antivirus, and then also one of the things we do is add on a secondary backup outside the Microsoft ecosystem, just as a safety factor. Okay, and so why don't we look at the three primary different cloud models? So if you look at the graphic, on the left this is on-premises, and that's really a private cloud. It's the most expensive solution, and what that means is that you own all the hardware and software, and this is really good for companies that are subject to regulatory compliance, meaning like financial institutions or healthcare. Where they cannot share any kind of hardware or software with anybody. You have to keep that data completely segregated from anything else because of those laws. And if you look at the right, where it says cloud, that's really the public cloud. And a good example of that would be Office 365 or Azure. And so Microsoft has all these data centers around the country. And all that hardware and software is shared with all their tenants, meaning all their customers. Now, all that data is siloed so that you can't see each other, but technically it's on the same hardware. So, if you're dealing with financial data and healthcare data, the government doesn't like that. So you need to keep that in the private cloud, like I spoke about earlier. And then the middle of the road here is the hybrid cloud, which is just like you'd imagine. It's a combination of the two. So you can keep your financial and healthcare data on your own private cloud, and then still keep your email and whatever else you need to keep non-absolutely regulated data in the public cloud. And so and that's the middle range in terms of cost. Okay, and so now if you look at the graphic here, it illustrates the difference between on-premise and cloud. And if you look at the on-premise stuff, it really illustrates how much more effort and labor is involved in having to deal with just keeping everything on premise. It can be done the same as the cloud, but the effort and the manpower is outrageously higher. And if you look over at the cloud, basically those cloud providers are going to do it for you. It's going to end up being a whole lot cheaper. And then if we look at common business factors for the MSP driving businesses, big thing is cost management. So tightening budget constraints. Okay, for example, here in Dallas, the IT unemployment is a little over 1%. So, and that's probably the 1% you don't want, frankly. They're unemployed for a reason. And so what that means is you're probably going to have to hire away from an existing company, and that's an expensive proposition. So a good MSP, that's a reason to hire an MSP, because you've got a fixed cost, you know what it is, they've got an entire staff, and that ties into the lack of resources, expertise. So, if you actually hire one person, you have their expertise, but if you hire MSP, you have the expertise of the entire team, broad range of exposure to a lot of industries and a lot of different solutions. That's great. And the other thing about the cloud is you can scale. Like I'd mentioned earlier, seasonal needs, you can add capacity and reduce capacity as you need. So it's a consumption model rather than big CapEx expenditure. All right, and also another thing that a good MSP can do is optimize your current IT infrastructure. So what happens is, people come and go, employees, and everybody's got their favorite flavor, and so over time, 5-10 years, you end up with a bunch of disparate systems, and they don't all talk to each other, and so what happens is, your employees will end up spending a lot of time just getting data back and forth between the different systems and everything. A good MSP can help you streamline that and get rid of those workarounds. Because what happens is, those people think that it's not a big deal. They just get used to it over time. Let's see, and then also another good thing that good MSP. This is another thing that we do is talk about hardware life cycles there. Another thing that we do is keep track of all your inventory. One thing that will happen is somebody will buy a machine, throw it in the corner, and then it's 10 years old, but they still think it's new. It's like, well, we just got that. Well, no, it's been sitting there for 10 years. So what we do is keep track of your warranty and age of the software and those kinds of things. So the important thing here is to take all this out of your hair and so you can focus on growing your business. These are not things you need to be worrying about. You need to focus on growing your business. Yeah, and in terms of the cloud also, one thing it can really do is help remove bottlenecks. Because now you can work anytime, any place, anywhere on multiple different kinds of devices, laptops, tablets, smartphones, things like that. And so let's say you've driven home and you've forgotten to finish a document, but boy, the client needs it. So all you got to do is pull it up because it's in the cloud, and you can finish up the document, maybe one or two corrections, approve it, and then have it sent out to the client without having to drive all the way back to the office. Tremendous time saver. And the other thing that is good with the cloud is these new collaboration tools. So like with Office 365, you and your employees can work on the same document at the same time. It's pretty neat once you actually see it. So you can see where everybody is editing it. Let's say you've got a giant contract. Well, one person can be working at the top and one person can be working at the bottom. or you can even be on the phone working on the same paragraph at the same time. You can see exactly what the other person is typing. It's really pretty neat once you see it in action. It's really does improve productivity. So let's go down the checklist of to identify the best IT partner for your business. First of all, fast service and response time, very obvious. We guarantee 1 hour response time. We can't fix it in 1 hour, but we guarantee that we'll talk to you in an hour. And you can't be sitting around waiting a week or a day or two for somebody to call you back. It's all too common. An annual IT budget planning and roadmap. We sit down with you every year and come up with a roadmap for you, and so you see exactly what your expected expenditures are and what we need to do over the next year so you can get your budget going. Quarterly business reviews. Now, this does not have to be quarterly. It can be semi-annual. It can be monthly. It just depends on what the client needs. But what that is, it's where we sit down with you and go over what happened since the last time we met, the outstanding issues, and what we see coming up over the next month or two. Disaster recovery planning. This is tremendously big for us. Not backup. This is where, let's say your office burns down or floods. Very important because our solution, what it does, it takes a snapshot of your servers every 4 hours. So at the absolute worst case, let's say the server dies, we can get back up within the last 4 hours previous, or the office is completely gone because it's all replicated up the cloud too. So if the office is completely gone, you can work remotely just like your office was still intact. Matter of fact, we won't even write a MSP contract unless we have disaster recovery in place. That's how important we view this. Third-party vendor relationships. That's just us dealing with Dell and Microsoft and all that. There's a lot more wrangling going on than needs to be, but that's one of the things that we handle. Hey, local on-site maintenance and support, boots on the ground, basically. Let's say a power supply dies. Well, somebody in India or Omaha is not going to be able to help you unless you live in Omaha. So it's important to have somebody local to be able to come out and fix your stuff pretty quickly. Daily backups and cloud services. And again, backups are so tantamount, so critical for us. As long as you have a backup, we can recover from anything. We can get anything going as long as we have a backup. It's so important. Security testing and monitoring, also very important. We use Microsoft Secure Score to make sure that Office 365 is up to standard and up at a very high level. Employee support. We have a ticketing system, also very important, so your employees can raise tickets. Also gives us an audit trail so we can see recurring problems and then address them. So we have a complete track of what's happened. It ties into those QBRs too, those quarterly business reports. Proactive maintenance, and this is possibly the most important thing. 24/7 monitoring and installation of security and software patches. You would be amazed at how many companies do not install security patches, and so they're completely exposed to hackers and ransomware. It's just a matter of time. We'll see what happens. And then finally, you need to select your managed service provider carefully. And so, I just did that list of 10 points. And those are the ones that are important to me. You may have a different priority list, but at least pick out the top 5 that you think are most important for yourself, and then make sure that your MSP will address those. And that's about it. And I'm going to throw it over to Q&A. Lacey, are you there?
Hi, David. I do have a couple of questions here from the audience. And the first one, let's see. How does the cloud network help me with my downtime?
Okay, that's a pretty good question. Okay, so basically, because those cloud providers, I'm just going to use Office 365 as an example. The Exchange Online, the email, they guarantee a 5 nines of uptime, 99.999 uptime. So even if your local network goes down, you've always got access to it from anywhere. So it's not relying on your local network. Same thing goes for SharePoint Online as well. If you have your documents in SharePoint Online, you can get to it from anytime, anywhere, any place on multiple devices. So, I mean, it really reduces any kind of threat. I mean, you're always going to have access to your data. I think that's it.
Excellent. And I have one more question, David.
Okay.
The question is, let's see, let me read this out for you. We're not an IT company, but we need IT to support our business. We're a small business that wants to grow. I don't even want to think about IT, cloud, or uptime. I just want it to work so I can run my core business. What should we do?
Well, I think in that case, what you need to do is find a MSP, managed service provider, and typically a good one. Although I didn't mention this earlier, typically a good one. This is what we do: is we'll come out and just give you a free audit and make recommendations and give you a roadmap. I mean, that's just what we do with every client we onboard or even just quote. I mean, we'll come out and do that for free, and I think any MSP worth their salt should do that. And then, so it removes, you're outsourcing your IT using an MSP, and I think that's the way to go.
Excellent. Thanks, David.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any further questions. And David, do you have anything for a conclusion?
Nothing other than thanking everybody for their time. I'm glad you'd listen to me ramble for a little bit. So that's about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to give you a few minutes back on the half hour. We'll have this webinar uploaded to our website soon, so please check back with us. If you would like to share it with anyone, please feel free to do so. Thank you from all of us at Symmetrix.
Thank you, everybody.